They told you the secret to love was loyalty, that if you stood by people no matter how they treated you, they'd finally see your worth. That the way to someone's heart was to be endlessly present, endlessly forgiving, endlessly there. But they lied to you. Because here's the twisted truth. Being available doesn't make you loved. It makes you disposable. This loyalty you're so proud of, it looks noble from the outside, but it's not what you think. Because the more present you are, the more invisible you become. In this world, what's abundant is ignored. What's scarce is worshipped. Niccolò Machiavelli once said, "Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. All men have eyes, but few have the gift of penetration. So hear me clearly. When you're always there, you become ordinary, predictable, forgettable. But the moment you pull away, they start to obsess. Because humans don't fall in love with certainty. They fall in love with mystery, with gaps in the story, with the puzzle they can't solve. And nothing creates that puzzle like your silence. Let's get brutally honest. If you stay endlessly reachable, endlessly forgiving, endlessly available, people will treat you like background music, familiar, comforting, but ultimately forgettable. And that's how you end up drained, disrespected, discarded. Because here's a law of human nature no one wants to admit. The currency of relationships isn't kindness, it's scarcity. If you don't pull away, if you don't create distance, if you don't leave gaps for curiosity to creep in, people will never chase you. Why? Because they don't chase what's already in their pocket. They chase what they're afraid to lose. Your constant presence guarantees your own invisibility. And invisibility is the first step toward being replaced. Think about it. Why do people suddenly notice a friend's value after they move away? Why does an ex become fascinating the moment they disappear? Why do you start missing someone only after they stop texting back? Because absence creates fear, fear of loss, fear of being replaced. And fear is the birthplace of obsession. If you refuse to create scarcity, you're not just making yourself accessible, you're teaching people not to value you. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. You've been brainwashed by movies that worship grand gestures, by parents who told you good people are always there, by partners who convinced you that love means sacrificing yourself until there's nothing left. But here's the truth. Love doesn't mean being endlessly available. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's self-erasure. You've been trained to believe that if you just give enough, people will finally see how special you are. That if you're always there, replying fast, forgiving fast, showing up at 2 a.m., they'll wake up one day and say, "Wow, I can't live without them." But they won't. Because the human brain is wired to dismiss what's too easy to get. It's like air, you need it to survive. But when's the last time you sat around obsessing about air? Exactly. Now let's talk about diamonds. They're just rocks. Carbon under pressure. Scientifically speaking, they're not rare at all. But why do people kill for them? Why do lovers spend fortunes to lock them onto fingers? Because diamonds feel rare. Because you can't scoop them up by the handful on a sidewalk. Now imagine someone handed you a bucket of diamonds every day for free. Would you still treasure them? Would you still guard them? Would you even notice if one went missing? That's you. You're the diamond, but you've been showing up like gravel. You think that answering instantly makes you valuable? No, it makes you predictable. Predictability kills desire. People don't crave what's always accessible. They crave what feels rare, what makes them wonder, where did they go? When someone knows your every move, your every thought, your every mood, they stop imagining you. They stop fantasizing about you because there's nothing left to discover. And that's how obsession dies. Let's dig into the mechanics of obsession, because it's not about love, not at first. Obsession begins with confusion. When you're always present, always responding, always orbiting their universe, they never have to wonder about you. There's no silence to fill, no mystery, no tension. But the moment you pull away, everything changes. At first, they feel relief. They convince themselves you're just sulking. They tell themselves you'll come back like you always have. They drop little tests. AMO, a casual, "Hey stranger." A like on your old story. A funny meme they think will pull you back into orbit. They're poking the edges of your silence, hoping you'll break. But when you don't, when your silence becomes a wall instead of a pause, that's when obsession ignites. Suddenly, they're asking themselves questions they've never asked before. A. He are you with? A. Why aren't you answering? A. Are you done with them? A. Did you find someone else? They rewind every conversation looking for clues. They analyze every detail you've ever shared. They start telling mutual friends things like, I don't know what happened, they just disappeared. They stalk your social media, hunting for evidence you're moving on, because humans don't chase what they fully understand. They chase what confuses them. They don't obsess over what feels secure. They obsess over what feels like it's slipping away. But this is where most people sabotage themselves. They try to pull away, but they leave breadcrumbs everywhere. They don't text, but they watch every story. They don't call, but they accidentally like an old post from 6 months ago. They go silent, but stay digitally loud. That's not scarcity, that's theater. Scarcity isn't pretending to be unavailable. It's actually being gone. Emotionally, mentally, energetically. Not to punish them, but to reclaim the balance of power. Because here's the secret nobody wants to admit. High value plus limited access equals obsession. Let me give you a story you'll never forget. There was a man named Leo. Leo was the friend everyone relied on. The boyfriend who never missed a birthday. The guy who always texted back, no matter how badly he'd been treated. Everyone praised Leo for being loyal, dependable, selfless, but nobody stayed for him. Because Leo never introduced scarcity, he was always there, and people began treating him like wallpaper. Familiar, convenient, invisible, until one day, Leo changed. He didn't ghost. He didn't post cryptic quotes. He didn't announce a dramatic exit. He simply stopped showing up, and suddenly, all of them came back. Not because they missed Leo, but because they missed the control they felt when Leo was always available. Machiavelli said, men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. Leo had been loved weakly, lazily, but now they feared losing what they'd taken for granted. That's when obsession begins. Because people don't value what's good, they value what's hard to get. You can be the kindest, most intelligent, most emotionally available person on earth, but if you're too easy to reach, they'll treat you like a cheap product on a crowded shelf. Why? Because availability kills tension, and tension fuels desire. Think of the last time you couldn't reach someone you wanted. The silence, the gap, the uncertainty, that's what made you think about them more, not less. Now flip it. You've been too reachable, too ready, too eager to prove your worth. And what has it brought you? Exhaustion, disrespect, emotional depletion, because your presence became cheap currency. Machiavelli would have told you, appear rarely, and you will be desired intensely. Appear constantly, and you will be ignored effortlessly. Most people confuse scarcity with drama, but true scarcity is quiet. It's not threats, it's not tantrums, it's not emotional blackmail. It's silence, it's absence, it's self-possession. You don't vanish to punish, you vanish to recalibrate. You don't disappear to hurt them, you disappear to remember your worth. And here's what happens when you finally do it. First, they're confused. Then, they deny it matters. They start chasing you. They check your profile, they ask mutual friends about you. They drop casual texts that feel innocent but are loaded with questions. But don't be fooled. They're not reaching out because they love you. They're reaching out because they can't read you anymore. Machiavelli knew that it's safer to be feared than loved when you can't be both. In this case, fear isn't fear of you. It's fear of losing access to you. Now you're unpredictable. Now you're no longer orbiting their world. Now you don't react. And that's when they panic. Because they realize you've stopped needing them. But here's the twist. When they come back, they don't come back with full commitment. They come back soft, testing the waters, checking for weakness. One emotional leak from you, a fast reply, a like, a post that screams, I'm still thinking about you, and the illusion shatters because they realize they still control your emotions. That's why scarcity must be real, not staged, not performative, not a tactic. It's not about closing your heart. It's about closing the door on people who only knock when they're bored. Yes, you'll lose people, but you'll only lose the ones who came for what was easy. You'll lose the ones who like you pliable, available, emotionally addicted. But what you gain, space, clarity, your deep, your edge back, and ultimately, you gain respect. because people only respect what they cannot control. You don't need to insult them. You don't need to announce your detachment. You just need to stop being their emotional on-call system. Machiavelli would call this governing through absence. Not fear of you, but fear of losing you. And when they realize they can't reach you at will, they either chase you properly or vanish. Both are victories, because now your peace is no longer collateral in someone else's emotional economy. You're rare, you're distant, you're unavailable by default. And finally, they start to crave you. No more begging, no more waiting, no more bleeding your emotions into people who treat them like entertainment. You've done what Machiavelli described as the highest art of the ruler, to appear present when needed, but to retreat before they believe they own you. This is no longer about love. This is about power, the power of emotional discipline, the power of perceived scarcity. Because once people believe you are not always available, they begin to fight for the presence they used to take for granted. And that fight, that's what you've been giving away for free.